Well, that said, let's go to our next issue of discussion, and this is about the vexed issue of payment of, wait for it, $418 million, which is an equivalent of 17.2 billion naira. Now, this 172 billion naira, I beg your pardon. Now, this payment by the federal government is to private consultants on the Paris Club refund, and that controversy is still heating up the polity. And this development, which has pitched states and local governments against the federal government, is casting doubt over payment of salaries by states. This due to the decision of the federal government to debit local government accounts, and it is also despite a directive by President Muhammadu Buhari to the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning to stop the payment and deductions. Well, angered by this decision, the states have now refused to consider the revenue sharing allocation for the month of October, which has now been suspended. PKO, there's been a lot of back and forth on this, controversial payment. Let me just save the background, but for you, how justifiable is this humongous payment?
Well, it's not even the size of the money that is the issue. You could be paying $1 trillion to anyone. $1 trillion to anyone, but you have to follow the due process. How did this whole matter get to this point? Remember that we even last month the president ordered that the payment should be stopped. After we came on this program to say, look, there's a case in court. The judgment debt that this payment seeks to execute, there is a case in court about it. Why the indecent haste? Why wouldn't you allow the wheel of justice to run its course? Why are we bent on quickly going to pay when there is a case in court? They've written to them to notify them that, look, state governors have gone to court over this matter. But we are proceeding to pay. That's what bothers me the most, not the fact that, oh, it's such a huge sum of money. Yes, it's a huge sum of money. If it's legitimate, if those consultants worked for it, they deserve their pay. But the governors are saying, let us do a forensic audit. That they are not convinced that these guys deserve to be paid this much. Some of them claim that Algon, which is the Association of Local Governments, gave them some contract, they executed some contracts for Algon. They can't point at contracts executed. And I really do not even understand how states and local government need consultants to interface with the federal government. A governor has access to the president. You interface with every week on the matter of this FAC committee. Commissioners of finance from across the states, they are interfacing with the federal government, the Ministry of Finance. And now budget planning, national planning. So what are we talking about? That consultants interface with federal government on behalf of states. So there is something fishy about the transaction, and it has necessitated the court action. We did not wait for that court matter to be resolved. You know how this whole thing came up. We paid $12 billion to Paris Club and other creditors, including the London Club, to have $18 billion written off. Now, some states claim that since the money was deducted from the distributable revenue from the center, they were not they ought not to have been debited because they were not owing the Paris Club. That's how the idea of refund came. And when refund came, some consultants came and said, "Oh, we were yes, we provided some services, this and that." My concern is the fact that the matter, you know, if you cast your mind back to the P&ID matter, Nigeria was going to lose a humongous sum of money. So these kind of things keep happening. Now people have stepped forward to say, no, let us do a forensic audit. Let's determine whether they indeed deserved to be paid that judgment debt. But you know, the Attorney General negotiated an out-of-court settlement and came up with the idea of $418 million came about. So they should have waited for the case to run its course. That's my own concern. All
right. Well, we'll talk more on this Paris Club controversy. BKO has had a say. Let me hear from Mayor now. The call out there seems to go the way of a forensic audit, and I guess paramount would be why states, BKO touched on that, why states or why consultants have to say they are representing states and local governments.
That is where I stand. One, the case is in court, so we must allow the case to run its course. That's one. Two, there must be forensic audit because it shows the kind of negligence that we have within the polity, because each state have the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice. Each state has they have Commissioner for Finance.
Indeed.
And a ministry to that effect. Within those two offices, they should be able to do anything they want to achieve without resorting to consultants. That's one. Two, how did they arrive at such a humongous amount of $480 million for consultancy fee? Because when you even look at the amount that occupies within the money they are trying to give back, it doesn't make any sense. So you will just give some money to some consultants, I think about 3 or 4 of them, you understand? And the states are saying, look, we object to this kind of payment, so we want to do forensic audit. They didn't agree. That's why the state went to court. You understand? So why is it that they don't want us to see that truly paying them is justified? Why this rush to pay them? Because immediately you start deducting this money, it becomes a fait accompli. It becomes a fait accompli. There's nothing you can do again. Even if you go to court, it will be very difficult to get money back from those consultants, because those consultants, they are operating from the premise that this thing is justifiable. You are owing us this amount of money. So by the time you pay them,
court can stop the deductions.
Yes. Court can stop deduction. Yes, court can stop further deduction, but court cannot collect the one they've collected.
Court has in some cases also ordered a refund. If you look at the case of lawmakers who overstood or who were illegally sworn into office.
We are going to get to that. So why is it that they cannot? The most reasonable thing to do, since there seems to be a controversy over the payment, and the people that you have done the consultancy work for, on which basis you are collecting the money, said, look, we don't agree with what has been agreed. So, and we are going to court. Then go and meet them in court so that you can explain in court why paying that money is justified.
I think, Mayor, my own worry and some of the things that I don't like going on in our country. We have a president that has a high integrity quotient. Whichever way we look at it, we may not like his style.
Yes.
But he has a high integrity quotient, and no one can really doubt that. Even the West supported him because of that. The president stopped this payment. At what point did he change his mind? They felt Nigerians did not need to know, because they knew that once it is announced to Nigerians that, okay, the president has
given the go-ahead,
taken a second look at this matter and ordered the payment of that judgment debt, people will now start asking questions. So they didn't even feel like they were responsible to the rest of us. They didn't make it public. Even the finance commissioners of the states were not notified.
Yes.
They just came to the revenue allocation committee meeting on Friday to announce that they had begun deductions. And that's why the chairman of the committee of finance commissioners in the country said, no, this is even unconstitutional, because what that portion of the constitution says is revenue accruing to the federating units shall be distributed. It didn't say that the federal government, because is the custodian of the finances of the country, shall take it upon itself.
It is not there.
To, when it likes, take money and then give the states what they wanted. Now that's the concern. These states are going through hell at this time. Many of them can't even pay the minimum wage, and if a new minimum wage is due, and you want to start deducting from their allocation without notifying them, and this deduction will be made for 120 months.
10 years.
120 months. So that is the concern. When did the president say go ahead? Who convinced the president against his earlier directive?
Thank you.
Who did that?
They didn't inform us.
And we know that in the past that the president had been misled.
BK, we have Charles from Lekki. Good evening. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Please, my contribution, I have two contributions about the insecurity and the money deductions. Please, what is happening to our intelligence gathering? Because we have been laying much more emphasis on deployment of armed forces without giving cognizance to the intelligence. And we knew we don't have much human resource as far as the population of these armed forces are concerned. That's number one. The federal government should emphasize on intelligence before deployment. The intelligence should rise up to the standard. Secondly, about these deductions, look, what is happening between the synergy of the state and the federal government? The Minister of Justice, the Minister of Finance are going beyond their normal schedules about this issue of deductions. You cannot be a judge in my own case without I being involved. The state government are involved, the federal government are involved. You are paying consultants. The money that must be agreed upon by both parties.
Yes.
What is happening with us?
Correct.
Please, they should check it.
That's the thing.
That is the thing.
It's in breach of Section 162.
Thank you very
of the
much,
Constitution.
Mr. Charles, joining us from
You cannot
Lekki.
agree that you want to pay somebody without putting me there. So you got somebody.
It's like shaving someone's head
Yes,
in his
something
absence.
that was read to me, and I'm not party to what we are going to.
And
pay
I'm
the
arguing
consultant.
with you that.
And I'm arguing with you that I don't agree with what you said. And you said no.
So, but okay, so it might just be left for the courts, to determine. But
That is the
what
law, but
options?
They bypass the court now to go
Yeah,
ahead
they
with
bypass
the
the court because
so
that's why they
what
went to court.
options are
That's why they went to
before
court. That's the only
governors?
option. Because in business,
They must
when
get
there are
a court to
disagreement,
stop
you
the
go to
deduction.
arbitration.
They
In
must
this
get
case,
a
it's
court
the court.
to stop the deductions.
You understand? Indeed, so
That's
because
the
normally
starting
in
point.
every business transaction, if there are disagreement, you go to arbitration, and in the arbitration, in this case, it's the court, and the states have gone to court to say, look, we don't agree with this payment. So the most reasonable thing to do is to allow the court to decide whether that money is justified or not. And then the state won't be able to do anything about it. But for you to say no, you cannot say anything. And because we have access to the funds, because we are the custodian of the funds, you just deduct it and give. And that's part of the people. But people are saying that we are not practicing, we are not federating units. It's just a unitary system. We have some people in Abuja will just give orders to the states.
And
because
the money,
you take somebody's money.
Even when, there is an argument that Nigerians make, very funny argument that, they just go to Abuja cap in hand. Nothing like cap in hand. all of that money belongs to
everybody.
So when Nigerians say that, it's a silly
units.
argument to say, oh, they go to Abuja cap in hand to collect money. That money belongs not to the federal government alone.
Yes.
It belongs to all the federating units.
What they are going
So
to
when you are saying that, you are assuming that it's federal government that is giving people money. No, it's not federal government money.
It's not federal government
Do you
money.
know how much of that money that came from Lagos, from VAT, VAT receipts from Lagos alone?
Yeah, they also state
so
like
yes, it's not federal government money. It belongs to everybody.
But we're also seeing the contractors and this, will I call them judgment creditors? Well, for now, depending on where the pendulum swings at the court, but they're also putting up a good fight, you know, defending the monies that
if you are looking at a huge sum of money.
Accredible to the net in workers, you know, they're all there.
Because they have a judgment to that effect. To say you're owing us this money.
They're in a position of strength.
They are owing us this money, pay. They have that. So they will say that. I'm not saying that as consultants they are not supposed to be paid. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there is a dispute over the payment between the states and the federal government, and the states have gone to court. It's important for all the parties involved to go to court.
It's
to go
even
and resolve
contempt
it.
of court.
Absolutely.
Let's put it the way it is.
Yes.
It's contempt of court.
Yes.
To not wait for the matter to be resolved before you started deducting. So what the states need to do now is to
Go
head
back
to court,
yes, and let
get
the
the court to stop further deduction. So that after this one, they won't come to the next FAC meeting and hear that a second deduction has been made. Thankfully, it's once a month that they will make it. So it can be stopped at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
The courts can even order that the deduction made should be returned to the
We'll see
states and local government.
how it all pans out. Indeed, so many interests, and we hope we can at least, you know, get some sense out of this controversy. Gentlemen, BKO, Mayor Kimperlu, many thanks for your robust contributions on the show today.